Hi everybody, I'm Jim and welcome to the channel. If you saw my previous video on the most recent dark timber drop of bushies, cave bears, and devil's horns, I said then if I picked up the fourth knife in that drop, which is the Comanche, that I would bring you a video on that, and I have, so I am. This is the Dark Timber Knives MidTech Comanche. It is the flagship of the last drop, and it is probably the most difficult knife of the last drop to acquire. I think there were only 75 of these made. There were somewhere around 100 plus devil's horns and like 150 cave bears, and I think upwards to 300 bushies. But there were only 75 of these. So if you're interested in one of these knives, it is going to be difficult to acquire. That said, there's going to be another drop of Comanches in the spring, and it is literally probably weeks away. What makes this drop of Comanches different is that it is in S35 VN, which for those that aren't familiar is a high-grade stainless steel. The other thing that makes it different is that the blade thickness, I believe, is 0.20 or maybe 0.228 depending on which dealer site you go by. But my understanding is that the Nitro V version, which will be dropping in several weeks, is going to be 0.85 on the spine. So the Nitro V version of this knife will be more similar to the Dark Timber Honey Badger in its thickness. So let's talk about this knife a little bit. As I mentioned previously, it is roughly 0.20 on the spine. The blade is 6 1/4 inches long. The cutting edge is about 3 3/4 inches. The blade at the widest point, so from the top of this wedge to the edge, is about 2 inches. The total length is 11.5 inches, and the handle is about 5.5 inches long. This is what I would consider to be a wilderness knife. And when I say something is a wilderness knife, I've mentioned this before, but I see that as the companion knife that you would carry with you if you were living in the wilderness. So if you had an axe, or if you had a saw, or if you had some other primary edged tool, this would be the knife that you would carry on you to do all those sort of utility tasks, whether it's, maybe splitting down small kindling, skinning an animal, just using it for general cutting of cordage or for cutting of small wood. This is the knife that you would do that with. Whereas something like the Honey Badger, and here's the Dark Timber Honey Badger for those of you that aren't familiar, this would be sort of the all-purpose woods knife. And again, this is my recommendation for a backpacking knife because it is very light and it is very capable. That doesn't mean that you can't do woods tasks with this knife. Starting a fire, I'm going to take it out. We'll see how well it sparks a ferro rod. If it sparks a ferro rod, cutting kind of kindling, splitting wood. Sure, you can do that. Like the other knives, the swedge has been flattened at the top so it doesn't eat into your baton as much. It'll still eat into your baton because it's still a narrow ridge. That's just that's just a fact of life. Another interesting thing about this is, again, Peter is going with this slightly widened tip here, so the swedge does not go all the way to the end of the tip. Stops about 1/4 inch short, gives you a tougher tip. The knife itself is very comfortable. It's got this little section here, which is not a choil, but it will act as a choil. I can comfortably put my finger in here without fear of cutting it. If you look real close, you can still see that there's a small, like 1/32 gap between my actual finger and the cutting edge. And I like that because I will definitely, take this knife and get really, really close to it. You can use the top here as a finger ramp. That is also very comfortable. The guard, I believe, is made of G10. The handle is a hidden tang construction. The tang goes all the way through the wood. You can see that at the end. It's got this brass cap to secure it at the end. It's also got an interesting construction internally, and Peter believes that he's making the strongest hidden tang in the business. There were 4 different configurations of this handle. This is the desert ironwood with red spacers. There was also a walnut with white spacers, a gray maple, and a blonde maple. In terms of Dark Timber custom knives, Peter's Hidden Tang knives are probably the closest that you're going to get to his customs. So not only this knife, but the Dark Timber Commander and the Dark Knight Skinner as well. And you know, just to sort of show that, I have a custom Comanche here. So these are the two side by side, and as you can see, they are very similar. Now my handle's a little bit different because I've got smaller hands. This handle style on the MidTech is what you see on a lot of the Comanches. You know, the other difference here is that the MidTech has a high saber grind, whereas my custom pretty much has a flat grind up to the sweat. But other than that, they're very similar knives. And for those of you that are interested in understanding, you know, how it compares to the Honey Badger, here's a Honey Badger here. You can see the Honey Badger overall is about 1 inch longer. The Honey Badger has a 6.5 inch cutting edge, where the Comanche has a 5 3/4 inch cutting edge. Now, just to give some perspective on weight, the Honey Badger is 11 5/8 ounces. The Comanche is 12 7/8 ounces. My custom Comanche is 13 3/8 ounces. Similar to the Bushy, the Comanche comes with a Kydex sheath from Grizzly Outdoors. It has the same clip and wing system, and I don't know what better to call it, but it's got the same clip and wing system as the Bushy. I've been wearing the Bushy sheath for, I don't know, 3 or 4 days EDC, which means I've been carrying it basically since 8 in the morning until I go to bed at around 10 o'clock at night. It's been very comfortable. I'm sure these will be the same. Of course, you know, this is a bigger sheath. Now, I also have, from Sergio Ortiz, a leather sheath. And this leather sheath is very similar in that it's got clips. And again, if you know me, all of my EDC sheaths have clips so that I can wear them on my shorts. Now, as I did say that I would be carrying it in the backcountry, and when I carry it in the backcountry, I'm not going to be using either one of these sheaths. Not because they're not good sheaths or they're not secure, they absolutely are, but because I'm going to be wearing a backpack. And so if I'm wearing a backpack, I need something to carry the sheath a little bit lower on my hip. And so what I'm doing is I'm having Dave Pouzon make me a Comanche sheath as well as a Cave Bear sheath, like this one here. Now, Dave is my go-to guy for my backpacking wares. This is my OG Grizzly sheath, and as you can see, it's got a fire starter, ferro rod at on the front. It sort of, you know, dangles down a little bit, and since I always have integral belts, it's got snaps. I just slip this down and through, snap it together, and I'm good to go. So I'll have one of these for my Comanche. I'll have one of these for my Cave Bear. And I'll probably have one of these for my Devil's Horn as well, although the Devil's Horn, I'm not going to wear on my belt. So that's a quick overview. Let's go ahead and take it outside and see if we can start a fire and see if we can work some wood. Okay, so I'm in my backyard. I've got my Comanche. I've got my really hard fat wood, and I've got my ratty ferro rod. I'm going to do some fire spark testing. And then I'll do some carving. I'll probably do some batoning. I'm not going to do any chopping. I mean, this knife, you know, 6 1/4 inch blade. You might need to chop in a pinch. You're probably better off cross batoning. It's been recommended to me that when I do these fire starting videos that I give a closer perspective. So that's what I'm going to do. Now, the interesting thing about this knife is it's sharp here, but it's also sharp down in here. So I'm going to see if I can get my ferro rod in there and spark that as well. We'll see. Now, again, if you've seen my previous videos using this fat wood, you know that it's very hard. Usually scraping with the spine is not good enough to get the type of shavings that I need to start a fire. So we'll see first if that's the case with this. Actually, that's not bad. Yeah, these shavings are more similar to what I was getting with the with the devil's horn, which is great. You can see how thin these are, and they seem to be big enough to start a fire with. I'm going to go with that little pile. As I've said in the past, in a real outdoor situation, you're going to have a bigger pile than this. But for what I need to do here, you know, this is fine. So let's see. Not so bad. Couple things. I need to make sure that it's closer to the guard. When I got up by the swedge, of course, because it's angled, it slipped. But that was pretty good. And the one thing with this is it is sparking well enough that, frankly, I don't have to go all the way down, so I don't have to worry about hitting my knuckles. Now let's try right here. Now this is not a choil, but I can comfortably fit my finger here. Let's see if this works. Haha, it's going to work. I just need to figure it out. There we go. Not the best way to start it, but it does work. I love that. I've pulled out an assortment of wood. I've got some Chinese pistache here, which I'll try to cross baton into. I've got a, I don't know, small piece of maple here, or actually it's probably apricot. Yeah, it's apricot. You know, that I'll carve into. Nothing major. Yeah, that's cutting fairly easily. Jeez. Wow, that's pretty good. Here's the baton I was using in my other tests. I've said Chinese pistache is hard stuff. It tends to chip out once you get into it. Go. Edge is looking pretty good. Said I wasn't going to chop, but I don't know. Is this really chopping? There we go. Maybe not as good as the last one I made. And again, I don't think this is your primary woods knife. I do think it would be a fine backpacking knife, so I would feel comfortable going out in the backcountry with just this. You know, it'll do everything that you need it to do. It's a pretty good piece. It's probably, I don't know, 2.5 inches. It's got that nice knot down there. And lastly, why don't we do this? This has got to be, I don't know, this is 3 inches this way and about 4 inches this way. Multiple knots all over the place. Again, you know, S35VN is probably not meant for this kind of stuff, but I've got to know that I can use it in the backcountry as a primary survival tool if I need to. And no edge damage. So there you go, down and dirty. Just a quick test with the Dark Timber Comanche. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.